Hello, I'm Patricia Kelly with Fearless TV. We're here today in Gallery Gachet in downtown Vancouver, and we're joined today by Caryn Duncan. She's the co-founder of the Central Waterfront Coalition, and welcome, Caryn.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Nice to have you here. Some of our viewers may not be aware what the Central Waterfront Coalition does and who you represent. Could you tell us, please?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, my neighbor and I decided that we needed to put some thought into a proposal that we'd heard about. The Whitecaps were interested in building a soccer stadium in our neighborhood, and we had a lot of concerns about that. And so we decided that it would be in the community's best interests if we tried to build a broad-based coalition, bring people together, formulate some agreements around our opinions about the stadium, and try and get the community engaged in the process. And so the coalition was built on a very broadly based model. It was important to us that it include both residents in Gastown and the downtown east side, people who owned and lived in condominiums, as well as affordable housing, including the co-op I live in, Four Sisters. We also invited business people to be a part of the coalition and individuals involved in social service agencies. So the coalition had a very broad composition, and our real singular mandate was that we all agreed that the Whitecaps proposed stadium was not good for our neighborhood, and we did not want it built on the Central Waterfront.
Okay, Caryn, and what were your specific concerns, the specific concerns, I guess, of the coalition and its members about the Whitecap Stadium being built in the waterfront area?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of concerns that this was a project that was basically being cooked up behind closed doors and being pushed along at a very fast pace by influential people with a great deal of money, and that there wasn't a discussion about how the Central Waterfront should be developed, and that included Crab Park, the last piece of undeveloped waterfront in Vancouver, and we felt very strongly that we need to have a discussion about what we want on the Central Waterfront, and that discussion has to involve all types of people from all walks of life, and that discussion hasn't yet happened, and we continue to push that point of view, and we are, I believe, the sort of only voice that continues to raise that issue. It's all of our waterfront. It's important the waterfront be inclusive, and that we don't have this soccer stadium rammed down our throats, which is how the process has felt at times.
Okay, let's imagine then they go ahead and they build the stadium. I believe it's to have 15,000 seats, possibly expanding to 30,000 in the future. Let's imagine what happens to Gastown and the downtown east side. What's it going to look like? What's it going to sound like when we have these events happening down there?
Right, and I actually can't do that because I'm still very committed to us defeating this proposal. So for me, we're in a strong position to push back against the development of the waterfront. With the inclusion of the stadium, I really feel that we need to hold our ground around this issue and say no to the stadium. The stadium, if it were built, and the stadium as it's envisioned by the Whitecaps and Mr. Kerfoot, would actually house 30,000 people. It would, in fact, provide an opportunity for the Whitecaps to play soccer, but that's really not what the development's about. It's an entertainment facility, foremost. It's about celebrity. It's about rock concerts. This is not a community soccer, stadium where there's going to be lots of community amenity or good
Kids
things
play soccer.
happening for the neighborhood, which is how the Whitecaps try and shape it.
Right.
It's how they frame the issue, and we completely reject that. So I don't want to envision our neighborhood including the stadium, because I feel very strongly that there's still opportunity for us to push against it. I do know that 30,000 people in and out of a very small space over the course of a few hours would flood this neighborhood with thousands upon thousands of people, and I'm sure that most of those people coming and going would leave peacefully, but I also feel very nervous that a few of them could cause a ruckus in the neighborhood, and I have concerns about how vulnerable people in the neighborhood would have their lives affected by the hooligans that are attracted to these sorts of facilities and events like rock concerts and events where there's drinking involved. But I really think it's important to say that this isn't a soccer stadium. It's a recreation facility, and it also involves thousands of square feet of retail development. And we and the Whitecaps and Mr. Kerfoot haven't disclosed what that actually means in terms of who they might be interested in enticing to move into the neighborhood. It's a huge space. I suspect it would be big box. It would be more bars, of course, to cater to the people they would want to be catering to that were coming to rock concerts and soccer games. And we don't need any of that in our neighborhood. So we feel quite committed to pushing back against the stadium, this sports facility, this entertainment facility, and opening up an opportunity for the neighborhood to talk about how we see the waterfront developing in the best interests of everyone who lives down here.
It sounds as though the Central Waterfront Coalition has a vision then. Are you committed then to community development, and how would your coalition go about producing that or projecting that?
Yeah, you bet. And the more work that Wendy and I did, the more people we met with and talked to, the more we realized that this work has been ongoing for decades. People have had a vision of the Central Waterfront for many, many years, predating my moving down here, which was only 7 years ago. There's lots of good work been developed around what Crab Park should look like, about how to be inclusive and open and involve people in the neighborhood to talk about what we all need and want down here. So we would want to build on that work, and we have met with people who have a vision. And I think there's a lot of good new ideas about what we might want to do with the Central Waterfront. And we just need to have that discussion with people. And it needs to be an open process involving everyone, and not outsiders or moneyed people coming in and saying, you need an entertainment facility. This is what would be good for the neighborhood. It would develop the neighborhood and improve the neighborhood. Thanks very much, but maybe you should have asked us before you cook up this idea, and we might have provided a slightly different vision of what the Central Waterfront should look like.
Okay. Now the coalition has recently been invited by the City of Vancouver to participate in a working group. Could you talk a little bit about that? Are you optimistic about the process?
Well, the working group was formed as a part of a review process because of all of the intense scrutiny that the Central Waterfront Coalition and others placed on the process. And so we were pleased that there is an opportunity for community to have a voice on this working group. The purpose of the working group is to oversee both the stadium development and the transportation hub. And so these two big projects have sort of coincided. I do think it's important for your viewers to know that the stadium proposed site did shift from the original site above the railway tracks to being built in the water where the Seabus terminal is now.
Right.
Now that was an interesting development that we learned about quite unexpectedly. The Whitecaps and the port decided to abandon the original Plan A site and shift to the Plan B site. And so the working group is going to be spending some time looking at this second proposed site above the water where the Seabus terminal is and the transportation corridor in that area also. We will have a voice, as will Carnegie Action Project, and then many of actually the boosters of the Whitecaps in the stadium. It's not a very, it isn't as weighted as I would have liked to see. So we will have a very important, I suspect, dissenting voice on this working group.
Is your coalition inviting any new members? And if so, how would people contact you?
Yeah, you bet. We are always looking for people to join the coalition, and we have also, in the last 6 months or so, started to welcome members who don't live in the neighborhood, who care about the neighborhood, who want to see the waterfront developed in the way that we envision it being developed. And so we do have supporters who are now from across the city. We have a website that's just verging on being launched, and centralwaterfrontcoalition.org, so I would encourage your viewers to check it out. Google us also, you'll get some interesting information around the work that we've done over the last year and a half, our presence at City Hall, and our continued work with the media to try and get the word out there about an alternative vision for the Central Waterfront.
Caryn, thank you very much. That was very informative. Thank you for coming
Great.
down today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I was pleased to be here.
I'm Patricia Kelly with Fearless TV. We're here today at Gallery Gachet in downtown Vancouver, and I've been joined today by Caryn Duncan. She's with the Central Waterfront Coalition.